Very good evening to you and welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. Today, of course, is our Thursday edition, and we would be talking about the 7%. We'll be hearing from the trade unionists. We have the General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, Lincoln Lewis. We have the General Secretary of the Teachers Union, Coretta McDonald. She's also the president of the Trade Union Congress, and we hope to have a couple of other trade unionists dropping by, and we'll be talking to them about where things are, what have they done since the announcement, what their plans are, and everything that is related to that 7%. So welcome on to Politics 101. And please share the link. And I want to say good evening to everyone, wherever you're joining us from, whether you're joining us from North America or Europe, the wider Caribbean, Suriname, French Guyana, wherever you're joining us from. And of course, if you're in Guyana, of course, welcome down to Politics 101. You're joining us from the East Coast, you're joining us from the West Coast of Demerara, Berbice, West Coast Berbice, Quarantine. Essequibo, you're joining us from the Essequibo, welcome on to Politics 101. And of course, without you, the viewers, there really is no program. So we are eternally grateful to you for your support, for your vigil, for your loyalty. We are in the midst of politics. You know, we're just a few weeks away from Christmas, and you know, at this time, traditionally, people are winding down and preparing for Christmas. But in our Guyana, you know, we are, of course, our politics doesn't stop precisely because you know, we are dealing with high intensity a situation. We of course have been monitoring the comments made by Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, Charles Ramson, and there has been quite an uproar over those comments, understandably so. We noticed the Guyana Chronicle this morning carried as their headline, David Hines has been in hot water for racially insensitive comments. And then at the bottom of the story, they carried Mr. Ramson's so-called apology. So they didn't carry any of the condemnation of the racially insensitive statement. I am going to release the actual tape of the program, which all of you have seen because you were on the program, and to see where the PPP skillfully cut out parts of my sentence, and to produce the tape that that they're calling racially insensitive. I'm going to release that tomorrow as soon as my producer gets some time to look at the program and to let them see how wicked those people are. But Ramson's statement, of course, is gotten the kind of response that it should, because it is more than a statement. It goes beyond the statement. It's really a reflection of a mindset, a prejudice mindset, a prejudice collective mindset that sees African Guyanese as a helpless group, a group that needs help. Those of you who know anything about Black studies and race will know about the white man's burden, which is a concept that comes from a poem that was written at the turn of the 20th century, urging America to look after Black and brown people around the world. America was about to invade the Philippines, and the poet was saying that it is the burden of America to humanize the world, to turn those half people into real people. It is their burden. And hidden, or not so hidden, in Ramson's thing is that view that Black people are in trouble. We need help. And the PPP is going to help us. It's their burden because our leaders have failed us. Also in that statement are the usual stereotypes of the Black man, the African. Mr. Ramson wakes up in the morning and he sees his dad dressed and going to work every day. The whole notion of Black people where fathers are absent and fathers don't work. Well, that is not so hidden there. It is full of those stereotypes, that there are no role models. There may be successful Black people, but they can't be role models because it's not them. They are the exception. Role models are the exception. The rule is that the community is not a real community. The notion of inferiority and superiority, here is this little boy sitting there with a straight face, with power in his hands, and speaking with such authority. And that authority comes from two places. It comes from the prejudice that is embedded there, a sense of superiority versus inferiority. I'm speaking of these inferior people. It slides off his tongue like butter sliding off a hot long spoon or a hot frying pan. And when you add that to his power, because he's a minister of government, even if those things he would have said privately, now that he has power, he can say them publicly. He's saying that against the background of Black accommodationism. Black people.
I don't tell I, everything shall fall to I.
Please take that down. Please take it down. Please take it down. Please take that fellow face down from off my show. He's speaking against the background of going into Black communities and distributing footballs and other little things to Black people. And Black people behaving as though he's giving them some gift. They're behaving as though they're so grateful to him for coming to their rescue. They give him that impression. They think they're tricking him. But they're feeding into his notion that we're so helpless. Here's a minister coming with your own money, your own taxpayer money, buying football and bringing and give you. And you're bowing down to him. So with that knowledge that they have captured these sons and daughters of the enslaved. They can speak about them anyhow. They also know that they have determined the parameters around which we talk about race. They scare Black leaders so much that Black leaders don't talk about race. They don't say they're Black. They don't say their organizations are Black because they're afraid of Indians calling them racist. Ramson knows that. Ramson knows that. He knows that Black people run away from their own Blackness, especially Black leaders. And so he's confident to speak to their supporters in that way because he knows that they are going to be afraid to beat him up. Thank heavens there are enough of us who are not afraid. There are enough of us who are not looking for votes. There are enough of us who are so proud of who we are. There are enough of us who feel for our people that we don't speak in whispers, as Joan Cambridge said in our letter to the Village Voice a couple of weeks ago about Black people speaking in whispers. Because when we're among ourselves, we talk about, look what these Indian people doing to us. But when it comes to confronting them in public, our Black leaders run away. And so Ramson knows that. He knows that Black people don't get any back-ins, or so he thinks, that he can say what he said. But the God above, the God of our foreparents, the God of our ancestors, that God has given breath to some of us to be courageous and to understand when our group is under attack, and to have the presence of mind and the intellect to push back against them. So, Mr. Ramson apologized. He can keep his apology. He talks about 1,000 role models, Black role models, and all he can name are 3 or 4 PPP men. Instead of an apology, it makes the problem even worse because it continues the imposition. These are the men that I, Ramson, think are the role models. Luncheon, Ashton Chase, and whoever else he names. Just as he thinks it's St. James Boys and my friend Shanghai and Kashif, they are the role models. He's now in an apology giving us a new set, Luncheon and I love Ashton Chase, I love Roger, but I don't think they're the only role models we have. I've said before that Mr. Ramson should be down on his knees, saying thanks to the men who defend us every day on the borders of Guyana against external aggression, and the women. He should be down on his knees saying thanks to the policemen and women who guard him and his suit and tie father at nights. And he should say, go down on his knees and say thanks to those men and women, some of them barely out of school, 18, 19. Going out there every day and teaching Guyana's children, educating us. Working beyond the call of duty, school over at 3 o'clock and they're there slugging away until 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. You should say thanks to them. All of those, the teachers, the nurses, who take care of all of Guyana. The workers in the ministries who make the institution of government work. They're Ramson's role models. Black people have given the world more role models than we can afford to. Our women have taken out their breasts and fed the children of other races, including their oppressors. Ramson should be down on his knees and say thanks to Black people that we scoured Guyana of slavery so that when his foreparents came here to Guyana, they came not in chains. Though still oppressed, they came as free people. He should say thanks to the African. They are the super role models. They dug the canals, tens of thousands of shovels of dirt to create the canals and the drains and all those things that make Guyana what it is, the environment of Guyana. Ramson is ungrateful, but ungratefulness is the product of deep prejudice. When you're prejudiced and you add your prejudice to your power, it becomes institutional racism. And ungratefulness is no longer in your vision. It is not about Ramson, the individual. It's about the organization and the government that Ramson belongs. That is what we're up against. Ramson is a symptom of the problem. Symptom of the problem. You walk around from the PPP leaders to the PPP followers. Every one of them know one word very well: racism. Every Black man that wears a dashiki or Black woman that opens her mouth, he or she's a racist. If Coretta McDonald stands up and says, I'm representing workers, representing teachers, she's a racist. She's put on her political hat. Racists replace the N-word in Guyana. Racism means that you believe that your group is superior to another group. I've never heard a Black leader in Guyana say that. Never. I've never in all of my political life heard any Black public person say that they believe Black people are superior. Yet, they call us racist. So they must know that we do not fit the classical definition of racism. What they mean is that we are inferior. When they say you are a racist, what they mean you are inferior. You're inferior, Coretta. You're inferior, Lincoln. You're inferior, David Hines. That's what they mean when they call us racist. They know that we do not believe that we are better than anybody else, that our race is superior. They know that. They know that we've been the victims of that. They know that we continue to fight that every day. Every time we hear the crack of a whip, my blood runs cold, Bob Marley says. They know that we have to fight that crack of the whip every day, every place on earth. But they know that we are not racist. So when they call us racist, what they really mean is the N-word. It used to be the leaders, now it's seeping down to the followers. We are in deep trouble in Guyana, but we've been in deep trouble before. We have thrown off the yoke of 400 years of enslavement, and we are here today to tell the tale. And anytime they hear persons like myself, and Lincoln Lewis, and Coretta McDonald, and Nigel Hughes open our mouth, they know that we are flies in their ointment. Because their grand plan will not succeed. They will have to get past us. And I want you, sisters and brothers on these programs, to start becoming activists. Our fathers and our mothers in the 60s and the 70s clenched their fists in the air and say, I am Black, I'm proud, and I'm beautiful, and you all better start doing that again. Let them know that our parents may have been enslaved, but they walked through the gates of those plantations as dignified people. And I intend, so long as there is breath in my life, to fight and defend that dignity. I don't care if you think what you think about me as an individual. That is besides the point. But once you're going to attack the group that made it possible for me to be here against all odds, my mother never went to university. My father never went, but I did. And they, and the community from which they came from, made that possible for me. And they didn't sacrifice for me to walk away from them. I shall defend them. Don't give a damn who call me a racist. I don't give a damn who call me the N-word. I dare any man and woman of any other ethnic group to come and sit next to me and let's talk man to man, man to woman. Fear is not part of my DNA. And if my parents were fearful, they sent me to school to wipe away that fear from them. I fear not them. I have a loud voice. I'm an African man. I can be menacing at times. I'm full of love. But I can be menacing when it comes to messing with the dignity of my people. That's my opening message tonight. I'm going to stop talking now. I want them to put that in a what they call these things? Put that in a video and send it around. That David Hines say that he's always ready to confront you intellectually if you want to go there. And if you want to play a bad man, I can be a bad man too. Put that in your video. To the media monitors from Mr. Kwame office that's monitoring this program tonight. I want to welcome you all. I love you all, young people. You all got to make a living, and I know you all going to learn things once you all monitoring this program. You are not going to hear us preaching violence. You are not going to hear us talking lawlessness. You are not going to hear us beating up on Indian people. You are not going to hear us say that Indian people don't have role model. You are not going to hear us say Indian people are inferior. No, sisters and brothers, you are not going to hear us do that. So you all can rest assured. Thank them for us for paying you all to monitor this program, because you all are getting free education. Tonight, you are going to hear about trade unionism, and you all going to hear about that 7%, because you all getting that same 7%, which really amounts to little or nothing. I guess already, Coretta McDonald, General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union and President of the Trade Union Congress, I know she's here, and Lincoln Lewis, my friend, General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, and like me, an African with a big voice from West Pobis, and like me fears nobody. And you know why they can't take Coretta is that Coretta just match them punch for punch, punch for punch. She is the epitome of what a successful Black woman representing our people should be. Welcome to Lincoln Lewis and Coretta McDonald. I don't know who else is here. Coretta.
Hello, good night to you and good night to your viewers. Good night to my Lincoln Lewis.
Lincoln? Welcome, Lincoln Lewis.
So we're not hearing him.
We're not hearing you, Lincoln.
I am grateful for your invitation.
Thank you
And
very
I want
much.
to say to the viewers, we are in for trying times.
Yes.
And I want to welcome all of them.
I hope my introduction don't get you correct in more trouble.
Well, you know, Dr. Hines, the thing is, like you have rightfully said, you're black. I am black, and I'm proud to be black. I am proud of my ancestors. I am proud of who I am. And so no Charles Ramsden out there would make me feel inferior, because, you know, the thing is, as black people, they love to tell you that you're racist when you want to talk. But you know how many things we can talk about? We can talk about those persons from other races who drink the rum and go home and beat their wives. But you know, we don't talk about that. We find the solutions. We can talk about the suicide rate and look at the people who commit suicide, but we don't talk about that. We set out there to find solutions. We can talk about so many things, but you know what? We don't place them in one particular group. We talk about issues generally, and we seek to find solutions. But like you said, these people, and I'm so sorry for this young boy, Ramsden. He is just seeking to find his way somewhere, but he is lost, absolutely lost, because he doesn't understand where he ought to be. And so he jumps here and he jumps there and he jumps everywhere. But I figure we might have to, because Ramsden himself, you know, is a recovering addict. And I'm sorry for him. I'm so sorry for him. I'm sorry that I have to say it on this forum. But these are the things that they sometimes provoke us to let the public know. And that's why he's behaving the way he is behaving. But you know what? We are, and we will continue to be, the persons to lead the way. Ramsden ought to be ashamed, but I think I'm getting too much into your program time, but I have to say this. Ramsden has got to be ashamed of himself. And like my colleague Lincoln would say, these people ain't got no shame. They don't know that word. But Ramsden doesn't know. If he knew history, he would not have been making the statements, or he would not have made the statement that he made. And you notice how quickly they prepared a statement for him to come to offer some kind of, I'm not sure it's an apology, some kind of something. But, you know, I want to say this. Unless we as black people, and I'm not being racist here, I'm talking about my people. Unless we as black people stand up for what we believe in, people like Charles Ramsden will continue to make these foolish statements. And you know what is even more hurtful? It is hurtful that the folks, the reporters who sat there were black, or they are black, and they sat there and nodding their heads, which means that they too are lost. They don't understand history. And so we've got to relate, we've got to be able to educate them. Send them notes on Malcolm X, send them stuff on Martin Luther King, send them stuff on LFS Burnham, Walter Rodney, and these kinds of persons. We need to go way back to let them understand what the slave trade is all about. And if they know those things, then they'll understand where they would have come from and how proud they ought to be of themselves, and not to entertain a trash like Ramsden talking foolishness, or interviewing him, or asking him foolish questions and nodding at the responses that he's giving. You talking about black people don't have role models? Where does boy really come from? Well, let me say, he's too young to understand. He's too young to know. Because I'm sure if you ask Charles Ramsden who was Shirley Field Ridney, he wouldn't be able to answer that. If you ask him who was the late Henry Fraser, he wouldn't be able to answer that. He's too young to know. And rather than taking time to learn facts and to know history, he goes out there prattling and making himself a fool. Imagine he couldn't even pronounce a simple word. So you could understand where this young man is coming from. And you know, the thing is, he was born with a gold spoon, so he doesn't understand struggle. We know about that. Our foreparents know about that. And so we can stand proud. We can walk proud. We can talk about where we came from. And we can talk about where we're at now. But Ramson can't say that. What Ramson can talk about is paying his way through college and paying his way through university. That's what he knows about. He has never struggled for anything. He doesn't know about struggle. So that is why Ramson can say the foolishness. But let me say, when we as Black people, when we get to understand where we are and what we are worth, then we would chase people like Ramson when he come to our villages to offer 2 footballs and stupidness. We would chase him out. And I want to urge our Black folks, when Ramson come to your communities, ask him about Black role models. Ask him to withdraw that. Ask him to offer a proper apology to Black people in this country and Black people around this world. He eyes past people. And really, it's time we put a stopping to it.
Yeah. Coretta, I, as a little boy, grew up seeing men and women, young boys and girls, some of them a little bit older than I was as a child, waking up every day and going into those school rooms. In my time, they used to call some of them pupil teachers. And dedicating their entire lives. They never do any other work. They spend their entire lives educating not just Black children, but children of all ethnic groups. They leave their communities, they leave their families behind. They go to far off places to teach, to educate, to mold our nation. You represent them as a trade unionist. And this government looks at all the groups in society. It looks at the business class and the taxes that the business class should be paying should become the basis to pay teachers, to pay nurses, and to pay government workers, to pay policemen. They tell them, do not pay those taxes. Keep it. Keep it. And then they come behind in the treasury and they say to sugar workers who have been severed, got to their benefits. They said, look, $250,000 on top of that. And then the floods came, they went to mainly farmers of one ethnic group and said, we're giving you flood relief. To this day, we don't know how much that bill was, but we suspect that it was a big bill. And when you come to those young people, older people, middle-aged people, who wake up every morning, sometimes leaving their children to fend for themselves, to go and catch transportation, to go far away to teach. You tell them you can only give them 7%, which our former finance minister, Winston Jordan, said amongst the about 25 US cents or 50 something cents a day.
Yes.
Correct, as a teacher, and I rather suspect that that's what you've been all your working life. How do you feel? Before we get into the trade union stuff, I want to get your feeling. Speak to me not as a trade unionist, speak to us as a teacher. With a government of your country saying, look, 50 cents a day.
Well, you know, Dr. Hines, I've been saying this over and over and over, and I will continue to say it. Whenever you see me out there, whenever you hear my voice, whenever you hear me calling the teachers out, or whenever you see me putting on my trade union, the cap of the president of the Guyana Trades Union Congress, it's because I am a teacher. I don't get paid anywhere else. I get paid as a teacher. Outside of me being a member of parliament now, I am being paid as a teacher. So when I go out there and I shout and I'm passionate about what I do, it's because I'm representing me. I am representing me. And when let me back up a little. In 2018, when the GTU led another massive strike in this country, Coretta MacDonald was a champion in the eyes of the PPP, you know. She was a champion in the eyes of the PPP. And in 2021, as a matter of fact, before then, when we had Dr. Henry Jeffrey as the Minister of Education, and we led that strike in 2003. We had lots of chants then. We had the chant that Henry is a yard fowl and we can pressure he. But in 2021, the same people who supported the teachers in 2018, in 2021, those persons, they saw it as being offensive when the teachers took action in 2021. And Coretta MacDonald was the worst thing. But I want to say to all of them, you can't rate me. I rated myself. My foreparents would have already paved the way and they gave me the rating that I ought to have. And I will continue to fight regardless of. I will continue to fight for the struggle of the working class people. 7%? 7% is not only I pass. It's a slap in the faces of the teachers. And you know why I'm saying that? Because our teachers, outside of what happened in 2019, what we're in now, we're in a pandemic. And our teachers have gone beyond the call of duty, risking their lives. Many of our teachers, when this pandemic hit the scenes of the shores of Guyana, many of our teachers in Region 1 contracted COVID, 27 of them that we knew at first, and so many others after. You know how they got that? Because they were going from house to house to house, delivering worksheets, handing out food supplies, so that their pupils and their students and their parents could be a little comfortable, because we were all in awe and shocked when this pandemic came about. More than that, our teachers continue to work in some of those schools, working with children, not knowing who is having what and who's not having what. They continue to toil with these children. And then at the end of the day, you're going to give us 7%. More than that, it is disgusting. It is dishonest. It is disgraceful. And I can't find words at this time, the right words to say at this time, because to hear the man who is the president now standing, delivering his parliamentary speech, his debate, talking about looking at his manifesto, looking at their manifesto, and they would have given public servants more than 20%. And he went so far to say, what about the teachers? You know, what about the nurses and the policemen? And then the vice president too went out there to talk about he's happy that collective bargaining would have been returned to the table. But you know what is sad? They were happy then and they were pushing for it then. But in 2021 and in 2020 and 2021, they forget collective bargaining. They've forgotten that. They've forgotten the services and the importance of teachers and other public servants. But let me see, you see that 7%? I'm not going to tell the teachers not to take it. I'm going to tell the teachers that we have to take that 7%. But you see Christmas that right around the corner? Note well, they're giving you the 7% so you can spend it in their families and their friends at their businesses. Teachers, be wise. Other public servants, be wise. Buy what is necessary. Keep your monies because you don't know what 2022 will bring. We in for hard days and rough days. And when you come out to protest for your rights as a Guyanese, which is your democratic right that the Constitution provides for, They will want to deduct your monies. So keep your monies for hard times, because rough days are going to be ahead of us. And we will have to stand up and fight this. We will have to come out on the streets. We will have to close the schools down. We will have to close the public service down and stand out there. If we can't stand out there, we'll have to stay in our homes and send that message and tell Charles Ramsden, let him go and run the schools. Tell Charles Ramsden and Barrett Jagdeo and Efren Ali and the whole pack of them, tell them, let them go there. You know, these people ain't got no shame. The Minister of Education, whose mother, her late mother, was a beautiful woman. She was a teacher. She was a head teacher. And this here is what she's repaying the services of her mother with, 7%.
7%.
This is what she's repaying the services of her mother with, 7%. And so if they can go to that level to deal with their own like that, then you know what they'll do with us. But I want to say to all of us, Dr. Hines, to all the viewers here, teachers will remain committed to this profession because this is a noble profession. But we as the educators and as the molders of the nation, we will teach the lessons that are necessary. And I say no more.
You say no more. Lincoln Lewis, you, of course, have been in this thing for a long time. The public servants of this country, they've had to fight against the colonial government. They took on the government for which the majority of them voted for. Mm-hmm. They stood up against the PNC government on the principle of workers' right to life and to a living wage. Every government they stood up against. But have you ever seen anything more barefaced than this one that's coming from this government?
Oh, let me tell you a few things, David. I've been around a long time, and I want people to understand this. When we talk about, let me start with the Ramsden situation. When we start with that, I have a very good friend who headed the Trade Union Congress by the name of George Daniels. George Daniels stopped going to Nasi because of the father of this young Ramsden. This man has been socialized to be a racist. And it's the racism and the racist utterances that his father were accustomed to and demonstrated when we go to Nasi that caused that Daniels to stop going there.
Have we lost Lincoln? No, it seems as though we have lost Lincoln there, Coretta. Let's chat until Lincoln comes back. You said that the teachers, you're going to tell them to take the 7%. Give us an update on what you have done since the announcement. Lincoln, I'll bring you back in a minute. Give us an update. Yes, go ahead, Coretta. You're muted. You're muted.
So far,
yes,
we have been able to meet with our teachers, some face-to-face, and others we've been able to meet with them via social media. Mm-hmm. And they are voicing their concerns. As a matter of fact, just last week at one of our meetings, teachers were ready to down tools. Teachers were ready to down tools. But the thing is, we have to be very strategic with what we do.
Yes. And
we cannot just jump off there and decide that we are going to be taking action. We have to get our general counsel that will come in another week or two from now, and they're going to come with what the members have been saying to them, and that will pose or pave the way forward. But like I said earlier, there are plans afoot.
There are plans afoot, and
we are going to be joining, not only the teachers are going to be out there, but we are going to join with the rest of the public service. And all of us will sing that same song. The thing is, 7% at this time, when we talk about 7% and we measure that against the inflation rate, I mean, who went to the University of IFLOT? I figure that is what is confusing these people. Because if you look at the inflation rate and then you are so barefaced to want to give workers 7%, what exactly are you doing? Right there, you are putting the stone with the string around their necks and you're throwing them overboard.
You're throwing them overboard.
You're throwing them.
Yes.
Right. And so
it is very good.
Outside of what the GTU has been doing in terms of our meetings, the GTUC as the umbrella body, we've also met with our affiliates. And that, as outside of our affiliates, we've met with other persons who are friendly to the trade union movement.
Wonderful.
And we are putting steps in place. I must say to you, and I think you mentioned it earlier, that this government, all they care about are the people who can stoop to them, whether they do wrong or they do right, the people who can stoop to them and they will run out to them and offer them some bit of coverage, and then they continue to do what they have to do. And so they have been reaching out to the sugar workers. No disrespect to our brothers and sisters in that industry, but the fact is, as government of the day, every worker in every sector, you are responsible for them. It is your obligation to ensure that they are taken care of. Not one group of people, and we have seen that with the PPP. Every time they come around, one group of workers they focus their attention towards. The teachers have taken industrial action a couple of weeks ago when we had boots on the ground. You heard all sorts of threats coming to the teachers, but we saw Gaisuco workers coming out. They blocked the main road. They did this, they did that. You didn't hear them being this, that, and all kinds of names being used to describe them, but you heard those names when the teachers came out. And then you heard, oh, it is politically motivated. Now, the fact is, when you talk about cost of living, I don't know what is political about that. When you talk about a proper living wage, I don't know what is political about that. So I'll be happy if Barra Jagdeo or maybe Charles Ramson, because I'm putting him here out of his league, if they can explain to us what is politically motivated when you talk about having a decent living wage. What is politically motivated when you talk about proper schools and conditions that are necessary and proper to work in schools? Tell me what is politically motivated about that. But you know what? Again, let me go back to 2018. In 2018, when we stood up for our rights, for increase in salaries, for better schools, for more resources in terms of what you have to use in the classrooms, we were on the right track. The teachers wanted to be engaged, and Jagdeo was calling for that. Engage the teachers. But and you know what? Coretta MacDonald at that time wasn't politically motivated. No. But in 2021, every word that comes out of Coretta MacDonald's mouth is politically motivated, because I want to have a better system in my school. I want a livable wage as a teacher. That is being politically motivated. But you know, on the other hand, I have my colleague, and I call him my brother, C. Paul Narayan. And before C. Paul Narayan, we had the late Kamal Chan, who stood there as president of GAU, and nobody from the PNC, nobody from the AFC, nobody from the WPA, nobody from GAP never said one day to them when they struck that this is politically motivated. And you know what? They sat as MPs then, both when the PPP were in government and while they were in opposition. Now my brother C. Paul is sitting there as a government MP, and nobody is seeing that as being conflict of interest because he's president of a union. Nobody is seeing that as being politically motivated when his members come on the street. But when Coretta McDonald speaks, it is conflict of interest. Well, let me educate you people. Let me educate you. If y'all don't know, come read some books. We can give y'all some books tonight. Read the books the book that talks about the struggle. What's the name of the Dr. Hines? The Crossroads. Gosh, it just slipped me. Labor at the Crossroads.
Labor at the Crossroads, yes.
Read that. Read the one the other one from Dr. Jagan, the struggle. It just slipped me. But I want to say to you, the Western Trial, yeah. Read those books. The History of Trade Unionism by Ashton Chase. And you are going to understand what it means to be an activist when you're a trade unionist. People must understand that Dr. Jagan, where he came from, when he struggled, nobody saw him as being politically motivated. But it's always convenient when we can put labels against people. And you know what, Dr. Hines, let me say to you and your viewers, you know they're trying to infiltrate and to demonize me against our members, the teachers. But let me tell y'all, we got good news for y'all. The teachers are sensible. While you might be able to capture some of them and fool them with all sorts of foolishness, and Nigel Dharamlal going to the quarantine and having meetings and talking about what they must do coming up for the GTU's elections that's coming up. Nigel is one of the persons who can't vote. He can't vote. So you could talk from now till next year. You can't vote in the GTU's elections and you got no influence whatsoever there. GTU has been standing for more than 150 years, and we will continue to stand regardless of which government is in power, and we will continue to speak for our teachers. We will continue to have our teachers stand there and demand what is rightfully theirs. You know, Dr. Hines, it's so hypocritical that the Minister of Education stands there proudly to talk about Guyana topping at C6, 17 subjects out of the 30, Guyana topping. But in all of that, no praise has been given to teachers. In all of that, you still don't see it fit to recognize teachers with a little financial token. All you're giving to us is pittance you're throwing at us. You got 346 million to dole out, 600 and how much million to dole out, but to deal with teachers' issues, you don't see that as being important. But the teachers' voices will
not be drowned, and that's Coretta McDonald, General Secretary of the GTU and President of the Trade Union GTUC. Lincoln, come back in, and I know you're having some problems tonight, but go ahead, the floor is yours.
Let me just say to you, this issue is bigger than that 7%. This issue is about governance. It's about respecting the laws of this land. And that is what we need to hold this government on. You cannot impose wages and salary on workers. The law 149C speaks of the Constitution, speaks of the role of the trade union. 147 speaks about the role of the trade union. 38 speaks about the role of the trade union. All of them in the Constitution. 151, 87 and 98 of the ILO Convention speaks to collective bargaining and the role of the trade union. And more so, the trade union recognition law speaks to the question that when an trade union is recognized, an employer has to treat that, to negotiate in good faith with the trade union. In this case, that this government don't want to negotiate. They want to dictate. And these are the people who tell you about democracy, and tell you that, and come now to want to impose a 7%. and want to come to tell you, you must accept it. The question here is not accepting it. And I heard some people saying that, oh, they must accept it as a interim and then negotiate again. Interims have been a long time, have been around the movement. Any interim becomes the real thing. And if any union worth its salt understand collective bargaining and understand the politics of trade union, they will not accept a 7%. What they will do is to struggle, get the workers to struggle for them to come to the table. Where's the interim? Accept 7%. If for tomorrow, these people are saying they're not going to talk with trade unions. We give them a money. We see this is what they want. This is what we believe they should get. So we give them you throw 7% at them. If they are doing that, 7% they throw at you, and you say you accept it as an interim, you know what will happen? They will wait for next year and throw something more at you. They decide that they're not going to do, they're going to break the law. And we must stop that. That should be the issue. That is the fight here. The fight here is for the government to recognize that they have to treat with collective bargaining in the public sector. We have to do that. We can't do otherwise. And Corta made the point. While she didn't say it in these words, this struggle will be long, tedious, and drawn out. We have to fight. We can't give up here. Let me tell you this. All these things that these people are doing, we cannot retreat. We cannot surrender. We have to fight. This fight got to be at various fronts. She made a point earlier that you can't jump out like before. Let me tell you why you can't jump. There's two sets of people there, you know. The people have resources. The state resources, our tax money will be used together with the psychic, the private sector. It's two sides with two groups fighting here. It's not only a public service wage increase. If and when you get through and move these wages higher, the private sector has to move the wages. So what the private sector is doing, they are supporting the government not to do anything, not to talk with the trade union, just impose it. So we have to fight. They are the people, they are some culprits too that we got to be fighting. We have to understand where we're going. We have to understand the battle, who are the enemies, and we got to develop strategies to deal with them. Let me tell you what. These people, if we hadn't Politics 101, Mark Ben Scott, Sherrod Duncan, Burke, and the other mediums like these, we want to be able to fight, because they would have closed off the voices of everybody, and only their voices would have been heard. I want to tell you, I have news for them, that God send these media. God give us this medium that we can talk. You understand? We can speak to the people. We can do what we want to do. We got to fight. We're going to use them and we got to fight back. That's what
Lincoln, the question I asked you at the beginning, because I know since I was a little boy, the public service workers always fighting with whichever government is in power. And in the end, the governments always come to some compromise. And I am thinking that this is the worst, quote unquote.
I want to tell you something. David, let me tell you something. I remember the 1979 wage freeze.
Yes, I remember that well.
Mr. Burnham met with the TUC, and he said, and they're talking, Bassett Blair was president, and he said they're talking and they're talking. Bassett
Blair was the president at that time, right?
Yeah, yeah. They're saying that they can't pay, the government, they're bad. He went to National Park Labor Day, and in his thing, he had his supporters, and the supporters, he said, $17 or I drove, $14 or I drove. And the people who saw the thing, and then, you know what they said? They said, I drove. Polydor said, Joseph Henry Polydor said, this is not the voices of the workers. I shall go to the fields, the factories, and the offices, and there I'll get my direction. It didn't take a week after. The people at Kukwani who have voted for the PNC resoundingly started the strike there. The strike went to Everton, and then it came to Linden. You understand me? Okay? They fought, and you know what? They were able to get the government and the employer and Guymine to come to the table. And they agree on increases for workers. They agree on it. I'm reasoning that for workers to understand that the only way you can fight and get something is to struggle for it. You can't sit down and believe that somebody will sorry for you. The 10-to-1 budget in 1989. I remember well the Saturday night when Mr. Hite, it was done, the budget was read on the Friday, and the Saturday Mr. Hite was in Linden. And Mr. Hite made some statements. And the television were beaming in the homes of the people. By Monday morning, the old bauxite belt was done. And you know what? The public servants didn't come out, you know. The bauxite people were the people who were able to get an agreement at the table and get some increases, get some money. I'm saying all of that to say to them that struggle, strikes and what have you, work. And I want to tell you something, the public service struggled over years. The teachers, you know, you had DIA, is DIA, right? You had defense bond and so forth. You know how the defense bond came around? It was the teachers union at a negotiation was struggling that they must get an increase. And the government agreed that they will put in a scheme which informed, which they speak to defense bonds and other things, put an increase there for them, deferred income and these type of things. And that was then, after that, it was given to the nation in general. I want people to understand, these were fights. Bassett Blair was president of the TUC, and his daughter, who used to work at the post office, come out with Piketty that he must fight, right? Those were, you have to struggle. We have to struggle for this. And let me point out to you, we can't tell you everything here, David, but this fight's gonna be long, it's gonna be tedious. We ain't giving up. If we allow these people to get away with this, well, we finish.
TUC has written to the president. Have you gotten any responses?
He will not respond. I know the man. If he responds, then he's going to be surprising. You know what Mr. Jaggio had said to people? That when Patrick Yard write here, or me write it, he just said that he just take the letter and he just put it in the shredder and shred it, right? So maybe the letter shred already because he's the real president.
Have you all, has the TUC written to the opposition leader?
Not yet. We are going to be. I want to tell you, David.
Yes, go ahead.
David, yeah. We are going to be addressing every interest group. All those people in their robes who always tell us about peace, we are going to be asking them, when are they prepared to stand up for justice? Justice and peace, they are peas in a pod. We have to get them.
Let me get Coretta back in here. Coretta? Is Coretta there with us?
I'm here.
Yes. Hi, Coretta. You said you all made the wrongs and you met your teachers. Your teachers are in high spirits and so forth. Remind our audience about the demands of the teachers, because the demands go beyond actual wages. There are some other outstanding issues that you all have. Please bring us up to date on what that entire package that the teachers are asking for.
Well, teachers have been, as the teachers union, we are not asking for 20%. Let me say that. We are not asking for 20%. The 20% that was being touted then when this regime stood in opposition, we're not asking for 20%. And so let me clear that one. We're not asking for 20%. We have asked for 15%.
Okay.
And we were hoping that we thought that we were dealing with sensible people. We thought that we were dealing with human beings. We thought that we were dealing with persons who recognize what teachers have been doing in this country, and so they would want to come to sit at the table. But that was, like I said, that was a whole thought, and so they have not responded to us. As a matter of fact, there's an agreement that is still standing. Not even that they have not responded to. Much more to respond to our new proposal. But let me quickly say to you and to our viewers, outside of salaries, we have been asking, and let me say this first. Our proposal is no different from the proposals that we have submitted before. Our proposals are identical. The only things that have changed in our proposals are the figures based on inflation. That's the only thing that is changing. The structure and everything remains the same. And so we've been asking for increases in allowances for additional qualifications. So for those who have, if you have a PhD, if you have a master's, if you have a bachelor's, then we've asked for increases there in their allowances. We've asked for risk allowances for our head teachers and for those teachers who are living on dorms, where we have the dorm setting and you have teachers living there. We've asked for allowances, risk allowances for those persons, because from time to time we would have had reports, and these are all known reports, where students in the middle of the night, students they get sick. And teachers have to come out to take them to the hospital. Students, for whatever reason, they start behaving in unusual manners, and teachers have to come out of their beds to deal with issues. You would have had issues where snakes are found in dorms at whatever time of the night. And so we're asking for risk allowances for our teachers. We've asked for our weekly council allowances. We've asked for a specific timing in which those should be given to teachers. We've asked for an addition with regards to the duty-free concessions that are being offered to teachers. As is right now, we have 100 duty-free concessions that is distributed among 4 groupings of teachers: head teachers, deputy head teachers, heads of departments, and the senior masters and mistresses. And what we're talking here is 25 for each grouping, and this is 25 across the country. So every time we have to send across or submit a duty-free concession, that list of 100, we are always missing teachers because it's 100 and it's 25 per category. And let me break this down further. 25 per category means we're talking here 11 educational districts. So when we take that down to finality, it's actually 2 teachers per education district. And if we're talking about Region 10, and we're talking senior masters or mistresses, 25, and if you're talking here about, let's say, roughly 40-something schools in Upper Demerara. I'm just giving that a broad figure there. 40-something schools, and you have 40 senior masters or mistresses in those schools. You have to take 25 who are eligible. And then you have another 10 or maybe another 15 who are eligible, but they can't fit the list because it's only 25. And so every year we have an overlapping, and you have teachers retiring, and some of them can't enjoy that benefit. So we've asked for an addition of another 100, which still would not be able to fill the gap, but at least it's going to work. It's going to work a little more, give a little more meat, in the sense that we're going to have 50 per category. And this would now increase to 4 in every educational district, which would give us 22. And you have an additional 3, which would make it the 25. And so to get that 25, it's a tough job. So we've asked for that. We've asked that the ratio, teacher to pupil ratio, teacher to student ratio, that be broken down, and we gave the numbers for that per class and per level or per grade. Because when you look at what is happening in our schools, in our school system, especially in our secondary schools, and in the primary schools and the grades 5 and the grade 6 and maybe the grade 4 level sometimes too, you have 30 and 35 pupils to 1 teacher, or 30 students to 1 teacher. And Dr. Hines, you know, for 1 teacher to be able to service 30 pupils, all coming with their own levels of development, you know how tough that is. And so we've asked for those numbers to be broken down. We've also asked for teachers who are suffering from illnesses, that they be given 1 day when they have to attend clinic, maternity, those who are diabetic, those who are hypertensive, those who are cancer survivors. Because we know when you go to the Georgetown Hospital, you can get there for 6 o'clock, but you leave there at 11 o'clock or 11:30. And based on the treatment that is administered, you can't function for the rest of the afternoon in school. So we've asked that an entire day be given to those teachers. And what teachers know what they have to do. You submit 2 days before your clinic cards to your head teachers, and so they're aware that you have to be out and what systems would have to be put in place. So we've asked for that. We've asked for house lots to be given to teachers. As a matter of fact, since Barra Jagdia was president, we asked for plots of land to be identified so that we can have teachers' housing schemes, just the same way we have police and soldier schemes. We ask that teachers be given housing plots of lands, and they be named a teachers' housing scheme. We went so far to say, look, we can name those housing schemes after ministers of education or prominent educators, so that anybody passing there, when you hear that name, it signals right away to you who are the people living there. We've asked for that. We have right now it is supposed to be about $300 million or more than that, where these monies were supposed to be used for a housing revolving project, where teachers would be able to borrow monies from this, coming out of this project, to be able to start a home. We, under the coalition, because it came all through, under the coalition, we would have moved to a point where we said, because we went to the commercial banks and nobody wanted to take these monies without taking interest on this money. This is our monies we're giving to you, and we're asking that you administer this project, but they wanted to take interest on that money. And we said, no, that can't work, because it's not monies, regular monies from you that the teachers are borrowing, but these are our monies that we're giving to you. So we didn't get that one off. But under the coalition, we were about to start an entire unit within the Ministry of Education to deal with this whole aspect. But it did not happen. Unfortunately, it did not happen. So we still have that on the go. We have there too where we're asking for teachers that some consideration be given to teachers who would have worked for, let's say, 20 years, 19 years, that some sort of recognition be given to these teachers, that just in case they have maybe a husband overseas and that husband would have sponsored his wife, that teacher leaving after serving there for 22 years or 23 years or maybe 25 years, 27 years, that some system be put in place that teacher can actually benefit. Because, you know, once the teacher resigns, then that's it. You can't get any benefit. 27 years would have gone down the drain. So we've asked for consideration in that area. We've also asked for the ministry and the GTU to set up a health plan so that our teachers can be taken care of when they are sick. We have there where we have 1 month, not a month, but a particular day we've asked for, so that the ministry and the GTU, we have a professional committee where we can meet on a statutory day to discuss issues that are affecting our teachers, and we come up with solutions. And let me say to you, that group was meeting up until August 2nd, 2020. We would have had maybe 3 meetings after that. And to date, we have not had another meeting. And you know what? Many of our teachers are suffering. Teachers have graduated from the Sir Potter College of Education in 2019, and their salaries are far different. There's a difference in salary that they're receiving as against those who would have graduated in 2015, 2016, those who have graduated even after them. And those are things that we want to have resolved coming out of the professional committee. And we have not been able to have those meetings outside of that to deal with other issues. And so we place that too in the agreement that we should have these kinds of meetings regularly so we can deal with issues within the teaching system. To date, just recently, about a week or 2 weeks, we would have written the Chief Education Officer, reminding him of these meetings. To date, we have not gotten a response. And I don't I don't want to sugarcoat this, but let me say it as it is. People are there with their tails in between their legs, even though they are qualified, highly qualified. They cannot step out to meet with the union unless the political dictator gives them that okay. And this is sad, because you know what? This is not a meeting to deal with salaries. This is a meeting to deal with teachers who are still awaiting their trained teacher certificate, teachers who are receiving incorrect salaries, issues where you have teachers going out there and they're being injured. And what do we do? What do we do as a body? You have other issues where we have a pandemic. How do we deal with our students? We cannot deal with every community on the same level. How do we deal with them? Do we continue to print these worksheets and distribute them? What about those students who don't have access, even on the coast, to internet connectivity? How do we deal with them? From last year to now, we've had our grades 9, 8, and the 7 in the secondary schools. What we know then as first, second, and third form. They're at home and they're being taught via online, via these mediums, whether it's Zoom or Edmodo or whatever platform you're using to teach them. But many of them don't have access. How do we deal with them? We have in the primary schools, well, now we have the primary schools, they're out at schools and they're on a rotation business. How are we going to be able to fully accomplish what we really set out to accomplish with these children? How are they going to be able to fully cover the syllabus that is there? We have the nurseries going out there 2 days per week, 3 days per week for 2 hours. How are we going to be able to fill the gaps? And those are the issues that we wrote the Chief Education Officer asking, and this is outside of the proposal, asking me, but these are, I'm mentioning them because they are important and parents need to know these things. Asking that we meet so we can iron out these issues. But to date, we have not gotten a response. What we got sometime last week was the Chief Education Officer, he was not in receipt of our letter. We resent that. We sent hard and soft copies. We're still awaiting. But, you know, this is the way persons view education. It is not important. And let me branch off a little to say, this regime is a racist regime. This regime got a thing against black people. And I don't want to cover it up. It is as plain as it is. They got a whole lot of disdain for black people because you look at it, the majority of the people who are in the teaching system are black teachers. The majority of people in the public service are black people. And so this disdain, it is more than just what Charles Ramsden said there. It is what they have been nurtured from young. And we have got to be able to stand and beat against this, so that persons must be recognized for whoever he or she is. I am not responsible for me being Afro. I am not responsible, so you should not deal with me for being an African. You should not deal with me. And as a government, you go on the international scenes and you talk about Guyana being one Guyana. Which one Guyana? We have 2 or 3 Guyanas here, because you look at the manner with which people are being treated. And like you mentioned, Dr. Hines, the flood relief. We have villagers, Afro-Guyanese, who are living in villages under quarantine, who have not received 1 cent. And they have lost their rice farms. They have lost cattle. I was there and I saw it. And you know what? Our friend Ali went there and he spent 5 or maybe 10 minutes or 8 minutes. And when the villagers asked him about what he's going to do for them, he said he's not here to deal with that. The Minister of Agriculture will deal with that. We're still waiting on that. And so we need to highlight all of these issues to let our people understand that this government, they're not friendly to black people. They're not friendly to black people. All they do is use black people as tokens. That's what they do. And, you know, Charles Ramsden, I have to come back to him, because all of those Afro-Guyanese who are sitting in the PPP, he ain't got no respect for them, because you heard him saying they ain't got role models. So I'm wondering, who is Sam Hines? Who is Roger Luncheon? Who is Mark Phillips? Mark Phillips holding the 2nd highest. Well, that's how we think he's holding the 2nd highest office. But who is he? Is he a role model? So if you're going to say that Afro-Guyanese don't have role model, then you're saying in actual fact that all of those people, they're just trash. They're not anything. They're window dressings. They don't mean anything. And these are the Afro-Guyanese, Ashton Chase and all of them, who helped to build the PPP. Robeson, Ben's father, and all of them, they're not role models. They don't see us as being anything, and we've got to be able to fight against that. And we've got to start doing that by educating our people. That's where we have to start it.
There you go. And correct, I'm so glad you raised that point, because those of us who are in independent people's organizations like yourself and Lincoln and us, they like us when we are fighting a black government. And the minute we turn our fight to their government, they're racist. So for them, our value in Guyana is to fight our own and not to fight against them. The minute we start fighting against them, we're seen as racist, they're disappointed in us, and all of that thing. Lincoln, the collision of race and trade unionism, is a real thing for Guyana, given the way in which our labor force is racially demarcated. Talk to us about how you balance those two things. Because correct, race is there. You have a government of one ethnic group, and then you have a public service that is predominantly of another ethnic group. And you have this clash. How, as a trade unionist, have you seen different governments, different trade unionists navigate this whole business of race and labor?
You know, I have looked at, when you go back to the records of the trade union, you will see that even during the time of Forbes Burnham government or Desmond Hoy, when you had to get duty-free for motor vehicles, motorcycles, and those type of things. GAO would have sent its application to the TUC, and Polydor would forward it on to the government, and those to the Minister of Labor, and those things were approved. In as much as GAO would call strikes on the estate, canes would have been burned, young and what have you, and aged, they were able to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Under this government here, the PPP government, not only this one, the one before, any union that they're not comfortable being or see as supporting them lock, stock, and barrel can't get anything. You cannot get anything to carry out union activities. They will even move to stop your dues, like what they did to the PSU2, seeking to crush it, right? Because they struck in 1990, the workers struck in 1999. It is difficult to balance things during the life of the PPP. They operate, they are a different class. Let me just show you this, David. Let me just show the viewers this. We sat down in at the TUC and we did the calculation on this money calculation of this 7%. 7% comes to $4.2 billion. You know, we could have sat down across the table, and when we work it out, when we look at it, this is negotiation and how we apply things. If we could have, when we finish calculating, you know what we come up with? We come up with a minimum wage of $100,000 for a police, basically on the amount of policemen that you get. A policeman who's going into training college. And when he comes out, we are looking at approximately $130,000. Now we get him as $70-something thousand. You know what that can do to an employee? The same money. Negotiation is about giving and taking. Give and take. What you can do is to sit down with that same $2 billion and address the wage bands in the public service. You use the same amount of money, and that's what you get. But it got beyond that, how these people behave. If a man resigning this month here, he's not entitled to that money, you know. If he goes into retirement this month here, he's not entitled to that retro, you know. You better believe it. This is how they treat with workers. These are different group of people. You can't talk with them. These are people who are dictating. This is what you're entitled. This is what I'm saying. This is not what you're entitled to. This is what I'm going to give to you.
Yeah.
Right? And they're not learning. Right? And the first thing, when you resist what they're doing, they intend to dub you as being political, as being racist. You get racist. You're a racist. You don't like this government. Let me point out to you. It can't be political because the decisions that are being made
are politically induced.
Political decisions. So they can be
political decisions. Lincoln, I know that you guys are meeting, you all are strategizing because the struggle is a long struggle, and it has tentacles that reach to other areas of our society. Coretta said that she has advised teachers to be very strategic about how they spend their money this Christmas going on. My program, I have launched that call, which has gotten the PPP. So jumpy, that they are going crazy. Is that a call that you want to endorse?
What I want to do is to tell people that this struggle is a long and a tedious one. You have to spend sensibly, because you will have to make contribution to the same struggle. Because this struggle will be multifaceted. It will be a struggle that we go to the courts. We will need to pay lawyers. We will have to find money to sustain persons who may have to do legwork. We have to do that. Christmas, you know, comes and Christmas will go, but your family will remain. Save the money to take care of your family.
You at the beginning of the program, you wanted to make some comments about the Barry Ramson statement, and you got cut off. Here's your chance.
Well, I was making a point earlier that, look here, his father was the person who caused George Daniels to stop going to NASA. Yeah. This boy, I can't say that he sucked it at the breast, but I can say that he was socialized to hate black people, right? Let me tell you something. This is a matter, you know, David, that I'm passionate about. Mm-hmm. My ancestral land, by my McPherson descendants, Kojo McPherson land, that Nandalal tell his supporters to go and break down the fence and occupy. These are matters that I see as a way of a new form of land grabbing by the PPP and its supporters. We have to stand up against what Ramson saying, and Ramson must learn, if he knows the history, that we made it possible for freedom. Our ancestors made it possible for freedom in this country. We fought slavery. We even fight the indentureship, right? And we fought colonialism. And we are going to fight back. Any group that want to seek to know that they want to colonize us or want to treat us like indentured servants. So the battle is on.
The battle is on. The voice there of Lincoln Lewis, the General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress. We have come down to program time. We have heard quite a bit. We have heard Coretta McDonald, as usual, very dynamic and passionate about defense of our charges in the teachers union. And she's also president of the Trade Union Congress, which means she has charge over all the affiliate unions. A lot of you have been commenting on the program and hailing the militancy of Coretta McDonald and the way in which she is fearlessly standing up to the government. Coretta, closing thoughts, closing statements at this point.
Dr. Hines, I want to thank you again for having me on your program. And I want to also say to you that I do have one of my own on Wednesdays, which is entitled Advancing the Cause. And I use that medium to do what I have to do. But I want to say to your viewers out there, to our teachers out there, to every single public sector worker, every worker out there, that Guyana belongs to all of us. All of us have a right to everything, all the resources here. And don't allow any group to tell you that you're inferior. I just want to remind us that a couple of years ago, just prior to 2015, when we would have on May Day we would have one march starting off from Middle Street. And by the time we get to Albert Street, we have two separate groups going their way. I fought that relentlessly. And in 2015, we were able to have, was it 20? Yes, I think it was 2015, we were able, or 2016, we were able to have one May Day rally where every single worker. We met, we started off together and we ended together. We continued that in 2017. I think we had the same thing happening in 2018. But then 2019, I think it happened in 2019, so I'm not sure. But we were able to stand together with our brothers who are under the FITOG umbrella. And I want to say to them that the same principles that you held then are the same principles I expect you to hold now. You know, Lincoln is he's very firm and very harsh sometimes and strategic with his words. But in his heart, he's a soft person. And so Lincoln, during the 2015 to 2020 period, Lincoln and we fought to have our colleagues from the FITOG arm to be included in every single decision that was made for the trade unions. But you know what we saw in 2020? We saw them, the PPP, going back to their old self. And so as we speak, there is not even a single member from the Guyana Trades Union Congress sitting on the Trade Union Recognition Board or sitting on other boards that we sat and we encouraged the APNU AFC government to include our brothers from there. I want to say to our brothers, I want to call out our brothers, Carville Duncan, C. Paul Narain, and all the other players to remember that as a trade unionist, there are certain principles that governs the trade union movement. And I don't expect you, regardless of whether it's the government that you are affiliated to, or the government that you follow, or the government or the party that is your party, which is governing this country, to remember the principles that we uphold when we sign on to those ILO conventions. Remember the labor laws that governs us, and that as trade unionists, we must stand together to represent the people who would have elected us in those positions. And we should never at any time stand with whoever government we represent to put ropes and chains and stones around the necks of workers. We should stand for principles. And so to all our viewers out there, I want to say to us, together we shall be made strong. Together we will fight this battle and we shall win. It might look alone, but together we will win if we unite as a working force, because this government don't like working people. But we will have to unite and fight back, because we cannot have a government who will want to go on the international scenes and behave as if they're peaches and they're pastors and they love the flock that they're shepherding. We have to let it be known that they treat workers here with impunity and disdain. And together we must stand and fight back these. Whether you're a man or you're a woman or you're a young worker now on, we will have to educate you, and together we all have to stand. Notice how many times I'm saying together, because we are all in this together. And if you feel that this doesn't affect you, you are going to be consumed by whatever is laid out there. You know, I hear this government talked about, when they were in opposition, they talked about the private sector minimum wage. But here is it, we saw banks, DIH, giving their workers 9%, and this government giving public sectors 7%. The call that I want to make is that we will have to get to the stage where we will, to that place where we are going to have to boycott some of these private sectors, some of these private sector entities, some of these banks where we bank our monies. We're going to have to boycott them and go to the banks that are looking out for our interest. We will have to get to that stage. And to all of my viewers, I want to say to you, remember, COVID is real. Continue to stay safe. And just remember that we are all Guyanese. We're not Indians, because we didn't come from India. Our foreparents came from there. But we are all Guyanese with a rich ethnic history and harmony. If together we put aside those kinds of foolish differences and we stand for principles, we will achieve that.
We stand for principles. And thank you very much, Coretta. Your what your programs is on Wednesday nights? What time?
Wednesday 6:30 to 7:30. Sometimes we go a little over to about quarter to
that's
7, quarter to 8.
That's on the APNU AFC platform.
Yes, yes.
The APNU AFC platform.
It's streamed through there, but we have our own platform, Streamline, that we stream through.
It's streamed through.
Also stream on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you all know you all way around this thing. So make sure you tune into Coretta's program on Wednesday night at 6:30, and give some solidarity over there, because we're all in this thing together. The old union call, workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose. Lincoln, you have nothing to lose but what? You're muted. You have nothing to lose but what? Your chains. And,
I want to tell you something. That was what it said. But the chain's gone. Now what we get is foot on our necks.
Foot on our necks. Foot on our necks. Closing remarks, Lincoln.
I would like to say, let me say thanks to you, David, and the viewers, to the workers of this country. I want to encourage you to stay resolute. Let us all hold hands as we struggle across the nation. One of the things we need to remember, that without a struggle, we will get nothing. It has been like this for all the years. I want to encourage you that if Critchlow and others in 1905 could have started the march when laws were not there and the United Nations and human rights conventions were not in place to protect them, they could have struggled on, fight and make sure that laws are put in place. Conventions institutions are established and conventions were promulgated. If they could have done that, then you can do it. Remember that if our ancestors did not fight slavery, we would have been born in slavery. Remember that. There's people whose shoulders we are standing on, who are strong, who have blazed the trail and set certain standards. We can't relent at this time. We have to keep fighting. Remember, as I said earlier, that we can make a minimum wage of entering into the public service, in the police force, as a probationary at 100,000, right? We can do that if we all together, we stay together. Let us don't forget. The struggle continues.
The vice there of Lincoln Lewis, President, General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, appearing on Politics 101 tonight with Coretta McDonald. And to you, our audience, I want to say, as usual, thanks to you. Thanks to you all. Without you all, there is no program. And I'm so grateful for the support that you all have given this program and given the other programs, because we are picking up the slack, shut out of the mainstream media, but we have come together and created new platforms, new areas of struggle. And I want to thank you all for being with us. On Thursday, I think we're going to have a packed program. I know we're having Basil Williams, who is going to come to tout his run for the leadership of the PNC. I'm trying to see if I get Vincent Alexander to come on to talk about what's happening at GCOM. And I know there's some other guests. So we are likely to have a packed program on Thursday night. Gloria says, thank you, Dr. Hines, Ms. Coretta, and Mr. Lewis. This was an informative discussion here tonight. Mr. Lewis, your words are like the music for our ears. Stay safe, and God bless you all. Yes, Egerton. My friend Freddie will have a mouthful to say. But, you know, he's doing his thing. I want to thank you all so much. We'll see you all.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.